Are you new to programming and would like to learn CSS? Then this tutorial is for you. Hi everyone, my name is Yazan and I'm an instructor at Integrify Academy. We upload new content on YouTube every Thursday. Today, I'm going to walk you through a crash course of CSS. So if you like the video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe buttons, and let's go. All right, so CSS, what are we going to talk about today? So it's going to be a crash course, so we are not necessarily going to dive deep into the details of these, just kind of more of like scratching the surface and introducing to CSS as a crash course. So if you are interested in any of these parts to be discussed in more details, then just leave them in the comment below. So we're going to talk about CSS, what is CSS, and what do we need to start with, how to create files, methods, CSS box model, colors, CSS selectors, class versus ID, some web safe fonts, text formatting, alignments, links, styling a button, positioning in CSS, pseudo-classes, and we're going to talk briefly about CSS layouts and just give one example out of it. So I hope you're excited. Let's get started. So first of all, what do we want is we will basically ask ourselves, what is a CSS? Why do we need a CSS? So a CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So it's a style sheet language, and it's used for styling HTML elements or HTML documents. And it separates the content, the actual content of HTML from the presentational part of it, and it makes it a lot easier to maintain, modify the appearances. So you basically have that styling in a different file. That's where you can have more maintainable code. And in CSS you have to keep in mind of the word cascading style sheet, meaning that the style will be read from top to bottom, and if you and the higher priority will be the one that at the bottom. So if you have you are targeting the same class with the different styles, then the one that at the bottom will override the one that was at the top. So keep that in mind. All right, so what do we need to actually start with CSS is we need an editor, obviously, and then the editor of choice here is VS Code, and yeah, and obviously a web browser, so you could open the file. So how I'm going to start with that, I'm going to start by creating an HTML file. So index.html. We've already covered HTML, crash course of HTML. So if you are interested, feel free to head back to our previous videos and find the HTML, or we were going to link it in the kind of description below. All right, so let's call this a crash course. So CSS crash course, and when it comes to styling, there are two ways to do styling. You can do or actually kind of three ways. So you either do it in a kind of a separated CSS file, or you do it in something called a style tags in between those tags, or you do it via the inline. But we're gonna see in a second how can you actually what is the kind of the differences here. So first of all, if we are talking about the let's say it should be inside the head, by the way, and if you are talking about inline style, let's start first with inline style. How can we do it? So I'm going to just have a header one here and saying CSS crash course, and let's first of all try to run the server. So I'm going to click on go live, and yeah, I think I will kill this and open it from this view instead. All right, so what do we have here? CSS crash course, and if you want to kind of like style it, so let's say we want to change the color to something like red, for example. So either you could do it in something called an inline style, which means that all HTML elements have an attribute called style. So that's already built into all the HTML elements. So by defining style, it means that you can write inline styles there. And there are properties and keys, so key and value in each style. For example, if we're talking about changing the color, then the property for changing the color called color. Then after that, as a value, we define what is the new color. In this case, it's red. And the separation between properties is defined by a semicolon. So this approach here is called inline style. So now if we go back to the browser, somebody's not going, you could see that it has changed the color from red to or from black to red. So that's called an inline style. And the second thing here is basically, or the second way to do styling is within an HTML file. So it's internal CSS, and how you can achieve that is by adding the style tag inside the head tag of the HTML. So, and inside that, you basically, what you need to do, you need to target what element you are talking about. We're gonna see in a minute what does this mean, and so on. But here first, let's go into different ways into doing that. So the header one, I will do the same thing. So I'm changing the color from changing it to red. Let me get rid of the inline style. And maybe we can do something like blue. All right. So if it's blue right now, if we go back, we should be able to see a new color. So that's another way. And the third way to do it is actually by creating an external CSS file. And that's what we're going to do from now on. And how can you do it is basically by creating a new file called maybe styles or styles.css. And inside that style.css, you will have all the files or all the styles you want to include. So in this case, I will copy this header, I will remove the style, and then I will move everything to be here. And at this point now, how can this HTML file know about the external CSS file? It can know it by linking it. And how can we link it? Is we need to link it inside the head tag using the link tag, and it's and inside the link we defined what is the rel here, and it's a style sheet. And then the where it's located, so the href where it's located, so it's located in the same place called styles.css or css, sorry. Okay, so now if we switch back to the browser, we see it's still blue, so it means that we actually linked them correctly. If I change this now to red, now it should back to red. Cool. So we now managed to link the styles correctly. So all right, so now let's talk about okay, so now the method for adding CSS, we already done that. So let's move on and talk about other concepts, like what is a CSS box model, and then we take it from there. Okay, so before even jumping into CSS model, let's mention something about what are the kind of, or how can you construct a styling. So we're going to talk about it in a moment, but briefly here is we start by defining what is the tag we are trying to target. There are multiple ways, which we're going to talk about in a moment, which either you select the tag itself, or you select by its class or ID. And then followed by curly brackets, you open and close them, and in between those curly brackets, you define what are the styles. So it's called here, this is called a property, and the property consists of a key and a value. So the key is always representing what is the type of property we are trying to do, and the value is the value of that property. In this case, it's the color, and the color that we're intending to assign there is red. There are other properties. There are plenty of properties. For example, maybe we want to target the font size, and we can define a values there. So there are different units in CSS, meaning that you have pixels, there is rim, there's im, and there's so many more. But the focus today will be mostly about pixels. So yeah, here we define like what is the font size. Maybe we want to have like 80 pixels. So if you jump back, you see now the font has increased quite a lot. And you see that the properties are separated by this semicolon. So you have to separate them by semicolon, or else the syntax is not right. You see, the CSS is broken. Everything is broken because I did not provide a semicolon here. So it's crucial to have a semicolon after each property. All right, so let's talk about here something that is really really important when it comes to CSS is what's called a box model. And let me just here get this size, yes, increased. That's great. So what we learned from last time when we did the HTML crash course is you can debug your HTML actually from the dev tool elements. You can target it either by right click on this and inspect, and dev tool will be open. You can choose after this what do you want to which tab you're interested in. Mostly if you're talking about HTML and CSS, then it would be the first tab, which is elements. And here you have then you will have access to all the DOM or your HTML in this case. The moment you click on a tag, you will see the associated styles. I can't increase that. Okay, the associated style to this tag. You can even like do the modification directly from here, which is really great. This is really good for debugging. I highly recommend it. And but what we're going to focus here is if you scroll at the bottom, that's what I'm going to focus is this is called a box CSS box model, and the idea of it that it describes kind of describes the rectangular boxes that are generated for elements in that document or the document tree. And every element in a web page is represented as a rectangle box. And the box model determines how the dimension of that element, whether from padding, border, margin, and it defines and how they are calculated and rendered. So the box model follows these components, follows the actual content, which is the one that you can see here. I'm hovering on with the blue color. This is the actual content of an element, and then followed by the padding of the element that would be surrounding the content, and that's mostly the space between the content area and the border. So the padding is between the content area and the border. So if I would go to the CSS here and create a border of 1 pixel solid red here, and I just go there, maybe let me increase the border to maybe to 10 pixels. Yes, you could see the border there, and maybe we can have a padding here. So a padding of 10 pixels. Yes. Did I save the file? I guess so. Yep. Let's increase the padding a bit because it's not that obvious. Okay, now it's better. So now you could see that the padding is in between the border and the content itself. That's where the padding is. Yes, and you can control the kind of the values in the padding. You can control whether are you targeting the padding left or padding right, padding top, padding bottom. And in this case, the target that I've done here, it's targeting the entire paddings, meaning that this is This is 15 pixel, 15 pixel, 15 pixels, and 15 pixels. So when you see styling as such, then this means that this is the top padding, this is the right, bottom, and left. And since they are all the same, you can kind of shortcut it into just one value, meaning that 15 pixel applies to all the paddings from top all the way to the left. And then when it comes to the border, the border is the line surrounding the padding and surrounding the content area. And you can also control the styling of the border, such as what is the border width, the border color, and or are you targeting the left border or the right border? So the styling that I have here is also a shortcut, meaning that we're targeting all borders, whether from top, right, bottom, left, and all of them have the color red, and all of them are solid, like one line, and the width of it is actual 10 pixels. Yes. So and then lastly is we have the margin, and the margin is the space outside that border, which is indicates right here. You can see when I hover over it, you can see where's the border, the padding, and the actual content. And the margin is where, as I said, it's outside the border. It separates the element from other elements. So that's what actually is mostly separating between two elements. So that's where you would use margins when we separate. And the same as padding and border, you have margin top, right, bottom, and left. Yeah. So for example, here we could say something like, I wanna have a padding top of maybe 20 pixels. I wanna have a padding bottom of also 20 pixels or 10 pixels maybe. You can do that. And for margins, we can say the margin is, if you want to give it an equal margin across all the sides from top to left, then you can shortcut it with one value, saying that, okay, the margin now is, for example, is 30 pixel here. And now you could see that we have created a margin that is outside. So if I were to have another element, like another, for example, H1 for some reasons, and you could see that if I decrease the margin here, then the space between the elements will be, decrease, as you might notice. So that's what margin are used for separating the spaces or separating the two elements. Cool. So yeah, let's just move forward. And so what we did here also, we covered the CSS Focus module and what are the most important stuff that you need to focus on and work on. All right, so next up is going to be for example, like also colors. There are, as we know that that for values like related to the box model or values that has like a number, for example, there are many units to it. You could say it's a pixel, so meaning like it's just one pixel, or you could say it's a 10 rem, and that's one rem equivalent to, by default, equivalent to 16 pixel. There is differences between rem and im and pixels, but I'm not going to dive deeper into it now. But yeah, so when it comes to colors, there's also different ways to create and to declare a color. It's either by writing the name of it, if it's supported by CSS, if it exists. So you can just type any color there. So there is one way, or there is another way of creating or adding the hexacode. So for example, you could say I don't know, for example, F5733 stands for red, and you can see that this is also acceptable. If we go back, this is still there. Let me just remove this one here. We don't need it. Yeah, and let me also bring this padding again, because we want a padding, rounding. Actually, it looks kind of cool. Yeah, so There's also another way to declare color. So one way either by the name of it, if it's supported, and the other is by hexacode. You can also target either RGB or RGBA or hexa or like HSL. Well, I forgot the name of it right now. I can't recall it. But anyway, so we can get the RGBA or RGB. RGBA would be with alpha if we're targeting the alpha there. But there's the RGB, which you can define by the what is the red, what is the green, and what is the blue here. You can see that within this RGB we got the green, for example, and voila, we have a green there. So I'm going to bring it back to this hexacode. For some reason, I like that color. Maybe we can do that for also we can do that instead of here writing red, we can write the hexacode itself. So let's just do that. This red is easier on the eye. Yes. It's missing one number. Yes. All right. So what are we going to talk about next is the CSS selectors and how can we actually select from an element. There are different ways to do it. So let's take a look in a moment. So first of all, you might have noticed that we can select element by targeting its tag. So if it's an h1, then we can just simply say h1, but that means that this applies globally to any h1 that exists in in this one. So if I have another h1, or let's say we want to go with like h2. So h2, and then let's say the color would be, and maybe a font size of 30 pixels, let's say. Right, let's just basically have this here. And now if I go back there, then let's say I have multiple h2, so header 2, and then another header 2, and another header 2. All right, so I feel like here, okay, yeah, I'm missing a column there. Okay, so if we go back right now, you see that now all the styles took this on or activated this actual styling that we have, because what we did is we targeted the HTML tag. So if I'm using h2 in this web page, in this specific document, then or that specific view, then the style will be applied to all of them. All right. So this is one way. If you're trying to create some kind of a global styling, then that's where you would use that's where you would target the elements by their tags. And it's not only for h2, it applies for any HTML tag like nav or footer or div, whatever tag you're trying to target. That's one. And the second thing is we have the class selector. So what is a class selector? A class selector is basically, it's an attribute that you would write in the HTML to define what is that thing here. So you define it by saying a class, and then you give it a name. So what is the name? So maybe here I'm going to call it like header, or let's say card title. Let's say that this is a card maybe title. And then what this means is, now what I could do is I could now target that. So how can you target? Because it's a class, targeting class, it's always via dot. So dot means we are accessing or targeting the class. Then we follow it by the name of the class. So it's card title. And then if I paste now card title, so now it means this specific styling will be only applied to whatever element is using this class. So if I switch back to the view, now you could see that only that specific header has the new color, because it's using a that specific class that we have tried. So if you look into the HTML here on the right side, you will notice that this tag have this card title there. And if you look at the CSS, you would see that it's taking that specific styling that we have. But if you look at the other H2s, no, they don't have anything because they don't have a card class or class applied to it. So now if you want to add this style to also for the other headers, all what you need to do is just basically copy it and paste the exact same class name there. And then if we go back to the browser, you see that the second one also inherited the style that we have told it so. So can you do this in classes? Yes, definitely. The idea of a class is if you have a shared styles that should be applied to one or more elements, then that's where you would use classes. Classes, you can basically create a specific class, specific styles, and then apply it to any HTML. It doesn't matter. You could just do it to anything that needs that specific thing. So that's one use case of classes. And then if we're going to talk about the other way about selecting is by ID. And now instead of writing a class, then we need to write an actual ID for it. So here we could call it ID of, let's just have let's call it title, for example, or let's go with header or a title. So how can you target ID? So you cannot do like with dot and title because the dot is mostly for targeting classes, and but when it comes to IDs, then you need to go with the with this kind of hashtag or bang or whatever it's called. But yeah, so this means now we are targeting the ID. And now we can have our own styling. So let's just say colors, and maybe it could be, I don't know, brown. Do we have a brown color here? Yes, we do have. So now you could see that it's applying here, it's targeting that specific element. So, but one thing you have to keep in mind that that when it comes to IDs, if you are using, if you're selecting an element by its ID, or you're creating an ID to an element, the value of the ID must be unique, meaning that it's unlike classes where you can declare the same class or pass the same class to different tags. In ID, you cannot do that. You cannot have a duplicate ID declaration on the same file or in the same HTML document. You cannot have the same one. So in this case, that's why IDs are unique. You can only declare them only once. You cannot assign the same ID to different elements, unlike classes where you can assign them to different elements. Yeah. So basically, to kind of wrap or summarize this, classes attributes are used to apply styles to a group of elements, and an ID attributes are used to apply styles to a unique element on the page. Cool. All right. So that's about the CSS selectors. Now, if we and the class and IDs, so let's talk a bit about whip save fonts and what does this mean. So when it comes to whip save fonts, we have a kind of fonts that are available on most of the device by default. Example like Arial, Georgia, and there are a bunch of supported fonts that are already installed in most of our most of devices. So this called a whip save fonts. If you are, so how can you do that is the font property has different kind of properties, which you can define the font size. You can also define what is the font family. So let's maybe target the body. The body here is the entire body of your HTML, meaning that it's the entire thing of this HTML. So if we want to say body here, we could say font size or font family is what is maybe Arial. That's the default one. Or you can it's recommended also to provide fallbacks in case of that the machine doesn't have support for such a font. Then you provide fallbacks to it. And how can you do it? Followed by comma, and then the name of the new or the other fonts. For example, it could be sans serif. And now what this means, now you see that the font has changed. So let's just double check here. If I would remove this, see, this was like the default font. And when I applied Arial, boom, we got a whole new font. So these fonts are, as we say, these are available on most devices. But if you want to have your own fonts, then you need to upload them and host them yourself. So others can have access or can read. Actually, they can read the customized font that you have. Or you could basically also, you could just basically go ahead and use Google Fonts. So if I go to Google Fonts, there they have a really wide selections of fonts. And then you could just search for whatever font you're interested in. Maybe you are interested in, let's say we are, I like this one here. What we can do here is we could, let's just maybe click, let's see where they have a new, okay, let's add this regular. Okay, maybe I have a new view there. Maybe if I click download, no, I don't want to click to download. No, this is not what I'm looking for. Let's just, okay, let's do that again. So I could click, okay, this one here again, let's do that. And if we add this to our font, okay, now it popped up. I was wondering why it didn't at the beginning, but anyway, so you can now add, for example, I want to add this one here. On the right side, you would see there are two ways to actually use this link. You could either use the import, which basically you can have the import right into your CSS file like this, or you could do it via the link, which means you would use HTML for it. So now let's remove this import, and then let's go to the HTML and maybe have the link right above the CSS style. So somewhere like here. And now we should have access to this style. So here Google has already have their own fonts. They already hosted it for us, so you don't need to worry about hosting and so on, which is really good. And so now if I want to click again and see how to use it, you see that you could basically just use this Sigma and you're good to go. So let's give it a try to see if that actually works or not. So the font size here, I'm going to have Sigma and then Arial. So if I go back and switch to the Crash Course, yes, cool, looking good. So now we have a CSS Crash Course, and now it's using this new font. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward, and there are different ways. So if you end up selecting not only one type of font, not only regular but bold, for example, or italic, you can specify that by having the font weight, and then it could be like either bold or like normal, or you can just specify even by numbers, whether that is 400, it means like normal, 700 means bold, I guess, 900 is some kind of like an extra bold or black. Yeah, so or also you can change the font, the line height of the font by using a line height. So that's basically the height of each character. Yeah, so plenty of stuff you can do with fonts there. Okay, cool. So let's move forward, and then what are we going to now cover is the text formatting style. So how can we format styles, and yeah, so there are different ways into formatting styles. So there is you could, maybe you want to move some stuff from being center to left or right, but let's just first of all I'm going to decrease the font size of this because that's quite too big. Let's just put it like maybe 60. Yeah, that's just fine, I guess. I'm going to close that up here. So it looks like at least this is kind of centered. Oh yeah, so yeah. So how can you do this or like this kind of styling? So first of all, what we want to do is we want to maybe align some certain text to left or right or middle, whatever. So let me add here another paragraph tag into this one, maybe somewhere around here. So paragraph tag, and then maybe like, can I have lorem ipsum? Okay, so that automatically generated for me. Maybe that's a bit too much. I will just basically just stick with this. That's good for now. Yes, so the paragraph tag here. So what I can say, I can just maybe give it a class, maybe, and say it as like a description. And that description, we can target that via the style. So if we scroll down, we can say dot description, meaning we're targeting that specific style, and then we can apply different things to it. Maybe we want to change the font size of it to be a bit larger, maybe like 25 pixel, and also we want to, let's say, let's keep it like this, and let's see what do we have. So if I go there, you could see that the default behavior or the default value for aligning the text is the left. So so basically, meaning, what I mean is, like, we have a property called text align. This is specified specifically for aligning text from one side to another, and the default one is left. But we can move it, for example, to center. And if I do so, you can see now the text has aligned into the center of the page. And then we can also not only center, but we have right. So we have the left, center, and right. Yeah, so this is for like text alignment. You can align it. I think it's also very, very useful. I'm going to leave it as center in this case, so it's right in the center. Yeah. So next up is that what we could talk about here is let's see what do we have next is all right. In this case, we can talk about links. So what are links, and how can you interact with them? So first of all, let's have a link maybe at the bottom of this, and the link tag, as we discussed, is it takes maybe an href. So what are you trying to link to? So I'm going to I will try linking it to a another page that I will just create, or well, let me create it to the same page. Like, no, let's just create it to another page. Okay, so about or about us maybe, and yeah, so I have a very basic one, and let me just create quickly a very about.html, and all right, so this will be the about page, and the body here will have an h1 saying about us. All right, so if you go back to the page now, you see that we have about us. Let's center it to the middle. And if I go styling and then description, so let's give it an actual like an actual class name here. So a class, we're going to say this is a about link. Okay, so we go there, and if we scroll down, we say about link, and now let's just say the text align to be center. So if we go back, did we get that? We didn't get this because of something called the actual display, I guess. So let's see if that is correct. So if you say display, it's a block element. Yes. All right. So that leads me to talking here about the display property and what is the display property. So we have different kind of displays property. We have a block, we have inline block, and we have inline. So each HTML tag has by default like a value or has a display by default, and it depends. So for example, the header one, the header one and the paragraphs, they have by default, if I hover, if I kind of inspect this, the paragraph tag, and you can see by default the paragraph has display block. What does display block mean? It means that the element tag, it will preserve and take the entire width of the window. That's like, hey, no one sits next to me. That's literally what is mean block. I'm sitting here. No one has the right to sit whether on my left or right. I'm taking the entire space, the entire width of the browser. That's what is a block means. And then we have another types of displays, which is the inline block. It means that I would allow someone to sit next to me, like another tag to sit next to me, but please respect the box model, respect the margin that I have, respect the spaces around me. And then we have the third one, which is called inline. Inline means that, hey, sit next to me, but just it's fine if you don't respect my kind of spaces around me. It's just you could be whatever you like. So this is the big difference between inline block and inline. Inline block kind of respects the spaces around the element. So here when we try to center the tag itself, so because the tag here, if we scroll, let's take a look here. Do we have a computed? Yes, you see that by the way, you can click on the computed tab here. You can see the element, what has computed, what the values has been computed there. And you can see that display is inline. So that's where the problem is, because inline doesn't respect any spacing around it. It has no aware kind of what is around it. So applying text align center, it didn't work because of that problem, that it doesn't respect the spacing around the element. And the solution for it is by changing the display from an inline into inline block. So if we just say display inline block, and then we go, and I think I had a typo. Yeah, I have a typo. It's called inline. Yes. Or let's say, okay, let's say block there, but yeah. So let's move it to block. So it will be, okay, now I clicked on that page. So somehow my laptop is not happy. I can hear the fans. I hope you can guys hear the fans. All right, so let's say if we give it a width of 100. So why inline block it didn't work? We need to, because if I hover over the tag, that's why I like the div tool is a great tool. So because it's inline block, yes, it does respect, it gives respect to the margins around the element, unlike the inline. But there is one thing special here, that, or one thing extra you need to think of when we're talking about the difference between inline and inline block. Now with the block, we know that it takes the entire width of the screen, meaning that if I have the entire width of the screen and you told me to be in the center, I can easily be in the center because I know where the center is. I have enough spaces to move on because I have the entire window there. But when it comes to inline, the problem there that the text align didn't work with inline block, because if I hover over the A tag, you see that it doesn't have enough room to be centered at. So this is all what it has. That's it can't center anymore. But if I tell it, hey, be width of 100, and now I hover over it, now it has a width of 100 and it has room to be centered. So it can be centered right now. So yeah, let's just stick with this. I'm going to have a width. So I will first move this to inline block, as we discussed, and a width of 100 pixels, or 100%, mean the entire view. Okay. So yeah, so back to the tags. So if I were now to click and visit I've created a new tab. So if I open now, you can see I have the about us. All right. So let's talk about some kind of links. How can you style a couple of links? So for links, we can target different kind of behaviors, whether it's active or visited or hover. So we could know that if it's visited, meaning that the links has been, like someone visited, clicked on it, and so on. And then the active means that the link is being clicked. And then lastly, we have the hover, meaning that when someone goes with the mouse like over the element itself, and that's hovering. And then we can do certain stuff with it, whether changing color and increasing padding. It doesn't matter what you do. Okay, so moving on, then we are going to talk about or let's go ahead and maybe let's style a button and see what can we do with this, at least some information that we learned so far. So if I were to have now a button there, so somewhere here, so a button, and I will say maybe submit, or let's say just read more, and let's give it a class of a btn, which is a button. So we go btn, and so first of all, if I would just save everything and go to the browser, you would notice that it has some default values or some default styling. So we need to get rid of some elements. So how can we do it? We could do it directly here, in the div tool. Let's actually do that there. So if I inspect the button tag, now I am in the button tag. So let's remove a couple of elements. So first of all, you could see that it has some kind of a background color. So let's target the background now. So we say background, and why it's, if you are new to CSS, working from the div tool first, it will kind of enables you to know what are the other properties that are available, and also what are the values that they are available from this property. So highly recommend it to make this div tool as your friend. So I'm going to use this color, and then planch almond, and then next up you see there's some kind of weird outline. Let's just have this as none. Then we are going maybe to have some padding. Let's have some padding. Let's say 2, or let's have 20 pixels padding. Oh, maybe that's a bit too much. Yeah, 10 pixels is fine. And maybe let's change the cursor to be a pointer. So meaning that when we hover over it, you see the cursor change to a pointer. We have some borders there. So it's up to us if you want to remove the border, or if you want to customize and create your own. Maybe we want to do our own border. We want to say, okay, 1 pixel solid, and that's maybe the same color, or let's go with black. Yeah, I don't know, let's just stick with this. Okay, 2 pixels with black. Cool. So now this looks way better. So let's just copy all the styles and go there to the style file. We paste them right there, and now if we refresh, we still have the styles applied. Secondly, let's do something about the font size here. So if I were to click on the compute tab and if I scroll a bit down, or you could just basically search like font family, you see that it's taking the Arial as a font family, and we don't want to do that. Let's make it inherit the actual kind of what we have. So font. You could do either by the by here, or you could just target it as a like a global font. So I'm going to use the same thing as here. So a button, which will be, yes, now following this one. Last thing is let's use some pseudo elements, which means that let's basically use the hover. So if we want to, we can just say hover. And to write to a pseudo element here, we will followed by the column, and then what is the pseudo, what are you trying to do? And here in this case, it's hovering. So all I want to do is maybe just change this to a darker color, which is going to be a bit challenging as I don't know what would be the darker from this plancha. But let's just see. Let's see here. If we scroll down, okay, maybe this one looks fine. And so I will change this to be this one. So now if I go back, now if I hover, you see the color changes. Nice. So here we applied a couple of stuff what we learned, yeah, maybe we want to put it on the center. Let's see. If I put that actual like text aligned center and then with 100 elements, then you see that what happens is that the element itself expanded for 100%, and the text that inside the button is now centered. So if I have this here as a left, will be the left, and now here if you want to have a center, it will be as a center. So what if you don't want to do that? Maybe you want to do it only, you want to only change the space there. What you could use is, we could use something like, for example, like this, maybe margins. And in this margin, maybe we can define maybe like what is the width here. But this is kind of like at least here a bit of a hacky way. It depends on the situation, but we're going to talk in later on how can we actually play with the layout in a different method. So bear with us later on. So yeah, let's just basically move on and see what we're going to cover next. So what we did here is we kind of practice most of the stuff we talked about by styling a button. All right, so let's talk about positioning in CSS just briefly, and then we can talk a bit deeper about pseudocode and then CSS layout. Yep, was water break. So positioning in CSS, there's a different like there are different properties, which is here I will basically just give you kind of for you to be aware of it. Again, it's CSS is really just a big thing, and it's, you will like basically it will gonna take you a lot of time to be a really good at CSS. So it's not an easy thing, and it's has so many things, so many options. So this like crash course, as I say, this mostly like scratching the surface of what can you do, how to basically like, you know, learn the fundamentals, the basic stuff, and then definitely we were going to have more and more in-depth videos about CSS. So when we talk about positioning in CSS, we have different kind of ways, or it depends on if we want to kind of like move the elements explicitly from one place to another. We have something called a position property, and the position property takes at least four values. We have the static. We have the relative, we have absolute, and we have fixed. So each one of it has a meaning. So static is the default value for position, and meaning that the element will follow the the normal flow of the document. So if the tag is at the top and there's another tag on the bottom, so nothing will be changed. It will be exactly like the normal flow of what is the property of this specific tag. Is it the block, inline block, or are they next to each other, wherever? So nothing there is going to change. But when we talk about relative, relative means that the element is positioned relative to the normal position. For example, if it's up, down, bottom, or left. Then we have absolute. Absolute means it's position position kind of like relative to the nearest element that is it's specified as a kind of relative. We have fixed. Fixed is mostly positioned relative to the browser window, and it doesn't move when the page is scrolled. Let's see here a couple of examples on what can we do. So let's go there and create another tag here, or let's say we want to create a kind of let's say a section here, and inside this section we want to have maybe an element. Let's say h3, and this is a title. Okay, so let's just basically let's target this title. So how can we target the title? Let's have something like this class, and then we call the section. So if I go to CSS, what I can do is I can target the section style, and then I can follow it to, I can also narrow down, like if this is section, I can say h2, and then what this means, it means that we are targeting this section, and then the okay, here is h3, so let's just send this to h3. So now it means we are targeting the section, and then not only the section, or not the section, but we are still kind of drilling to what is the exact tag we are looking for. So in this case is h3. So this means that, hey, whatever style that I write in between these curly brackets, it's targeting the h3 that's inside the class section. And maybe here it's a bit let's call it a wrapper, because it's section, so this might be confusing. So let's say here. So now I'm targeting the h3 that is inside the wrapper, only the h3 that is inside the wrapper. Let's just try a couple of things here. So this falls back into also kind of like the selectors. And if I were to have another h3 there, so a title outside wrapper, and here title inside the wrapper. And if I go to the browser here, you see that the title outside the wrapper has no styling. It doesn't have the color there. Only the one that is inside the wrapper has the red color as we specified it in this style. See, red color is only applied the one that is inside the wrapper, not the global one. Cool. So yeah, let's continue there. So as we said, we have let's talk about the position relative. So we can say position relative, and then we can basically move stuff depending on the relative. So let's just say top 20 pixels, and let's go ahead and actually let me here have a background color in the wrapper. So background color, and that would be maybe gray. All right. So now if I inspect that element h3, then you could see I have properties top and bottom. If I play around with it, you see that I can move it. So if this is 0, it means it's where it's located. Then I can go either minus top, I can go to the bottom. If you want to change things on the element, that's one way. If you want to, maybe you can also target the right. It can go, depending how much from the right, and do you have the left and the bottom, and so on and so forth. That's one thing. And then there is the absolute. The absolute is basically will change relative to if it's inside a relative parent. So if I have here, if the wrapper is of a position relative, and then the h3 is a position of absolute, then this h3 will be I think there must be some typo as I can't see this. Let's see what typos I have. If I inspect this. Okay, so it's relative now, but the height has gone. So let's just say we want to height of, I don't know, 50 pixel. Okay, let's just add the height to the wrapper. And right now, what we said is now the F3 is positioned absolute to relatively to the wrapper, because this actually has a position absolute and its parent has a relative. So if I say now go 20 pixel, it means it will go 20 pixel relatively to its parent that's been defined as a relative. But if I would remove the relative from the wrapper, see, if I would remove this, hey, don't be there. So what this means is now the element will be moving relatively to the kind of, at least here, to the nearest kind of containing block element, or maybe you could think of it as a kind of like the view here. So it starts from the top actually. So here you see that it's not relative to the to the parent. So if you want to be relatively to something, to an element, then you can just need to define that relative position to it. Yeah, the same things with fixed. Fixed is mostly it will be fixed there, and it won't change according to if you scroll down or up. All right, so what we have next is we have the pseudo classes, and in pseudo classes is the idea of pseudo classes. We talked about it in briefly, but what the actual kind of definition of it, it targets, or when do you need a pseudo class? A pseudo class is if you want to target elements based on their state or position in the HTML. So as you said, you could target if you're hovering, or if it's the second or third child of the parent, and so on and so forth. Let's take a look here at a couple of examples on what do you need to do. So right now what we can do is we can maybe we have here a paragraph. So let's have maybe like a second paragraph there, or let's have 4 paragraphs, and maybe let's have them inside a div, and the div has a class of say content. And let's move them here. So cool. So now we have the div content, or the paragraphs wrapping inside div. So let's double check there. Cool. You see the elements, all the paragraphs are there. So what can we do here is we could now basically target the children. One of the properties, or the pseudo properties, is to target the kind of children of a tag or a parent. So let's take this description. Then what we can do here, we could say, for example, like this description, go ahead with NF child. So this means like we're targeting the child, and here we could define which child we're targeting. But what we need to do is we could also tell it that's even. So meaning that all even children will have that specific kind of maybe a background of color of right, light to gray, for example. You see now what we did is we targeted the even elements of the description, which is 2 and 4, for example. You can go to odd, for example, and then it will target the odd element, the 1 and 2nd. You can say that you want to target maybe only the first child of this description, and then only the first child gets targeted. Maybe you want to say the third, for example, and now the third one will be targeted. That's one way. And there is another kind of another ways or another kind of pseudo classes is, for example, description. We maybe we wanna get, you know, maybe the first letter, and the first letter is maybe we wanna have font size of I don't know, let's go 30 pixel. Yeah, let's go with higher. Let's go with 50 pixel, and let's go with. Well, I don't think we have more than 120. But yeah, cool. So you see now we target the first letter of the element of the tag. But yeah, there are like plenty of pseudo classes. You can like basically check them out online, and you know, it depends on what do you want to do. Here's again, it's just basically just kind of more of like a brief or scratching the surface of these pseudo classes. Okay, so lastly here is let's talk about something called a CSS layout, and what is this, and why do you need it? So CSS layout refers to the arrangement and organizing organization of the elements in the on the web view or on the web page, and the layout actually it tells or determines how the elements are displayed, and next to each other, under each other, and so on. There is a lot of techniques to handle this CSS layout, and there are different ways to do it. You've seen on this positioning in CSS, where you can tell if it's relative, then we can position stuff, but that's not really the best way to position elements. That's where you would look for like more advanced layouting, and one of them, there's the Flexbox, for example, the grid layout, grid and methods and so on. So these mostly responsible for layouting elements and building the layout of the page, and it allows you to control the alignment size, the order of the element, if you want to have them in this order, or how many elements do you want to have in one row, and why do you need this CSS layout is actually to be able to build responsive designs where you can automatically adjust sizes, adjust spaces, adjust the location of the element based on maybe a specific viewpoint or viewport, and yeah, so what we're going to talk here about them, I'm just going to give a very brief kind of just an intro into one of the methods, which is Flexbox, and how to do it. Again, it's the idea of the entire crash course here is just to give you a taste and getting started with the CSS. But again, if you are more interested into any of the topics that I've talked about, or what I'm going to talk about in next, that you want a more explanation and more in depth, then please let me know in the comments below. So let's like wrap up this session with the CSS layout and what we need to do there, or what can we do there. So as I said, we are going to use a. Let me just remove all this because I don't need that anymore. And let's do something like we're going to have a section, maybe. I'm going to call it, in this case, a flex maybe container. And then we are going to have a different maybe divs inside. So we'll have this as a class of, we call the flex item. And I can have this kind of called like item 1. All right, so I can let me just have yeah, that's good. I will have 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so all of them shares the same item, and what is a Flexbox is basically is one-dimensional, and it consists of a flex container, which is the container of the elements, meaning that if I were to say that a flex container is displayed, you can see here at the bottom here, flex container is display, or this whatever tag has a display of a flex, this means that this is now a flex container. And by default, when you have a flex container, then all the children of that parent, meaning that all these divs that are children, direct children of all the direct children of that flex container, they become flex items. Okay, so now if I would save this, if I go to CSS file and save the file, and then I go back to the browser, you see that all the elements are next to each other, like item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. If I were to remove this display flex, now they will be under each other because div is a block element. But by default, the direction of a flex items are in row. So direction is row. All of them will be at the row. That's the moment you enable flex, all the flex items will become, as a row. It doesn't matter if they have a display block or whatever, all of them will be in row. So let's just change a couple of things here and see what we can do about it. So a flex container can have a different types. So we can define that what is the content here? Justify content. What are we going to do with them at the main axis? So we have a main axis and we have a cross axis. A main axis by default is the horizontal, and the cross axis is the vertical. That's by default. I'm not going to go deeper into that because I don't want to confuse you at this point. So let's just keep everything as what is the default behavior. So default behavior is when it comes to justify content, we are targeting the main axes. And here we could main axis mean horizontal. So now we could say have a space between them. And if I were to go there, you could see now it used the available space that we had before, and it distributed them evenly between each element. You could see, I see at the bottom there, you could see that, okay, what if I want to have space around? So what it's going to do is it will also do the same thing, which is going to take what is the available space in that in the flex container, and then distributes the spaces even, not necessarily evenly, but at somehow even rounding. So all around. If you want to make sure that you distribute them even, so you can just go. I think it's called evenly. Yes, evenly. If you do evenly, it evenly exact the same thing will be distributed among them. Cool. So so you can see here now how can we lay out things, and maybe let's just change. Let's give some styling to the flex item. So I will just basically have a padding maybe of 10 pixel, and maybe let's give a margin. Why not? Let's say here, or yeah, we can handle the margin later on. Background color, we could use something like light blue. We didn't use that before, and maybe we don't have a width yet. Let's just have some fixed width. For some reason we want to have fixed width. So now you could see that they are fixed width, and there's nothing in between them. So we could say we could have a margin there. Maybe we want to have a margin 5 pixel, and see that we start giving spaces between the elements. Now we have item 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. But at least right now they are kind of not responsive. So if I shrink this, they still at the same line. If that's what we want, if they intended for us to have them on the same line, then what we could do, we could use something called a flex wrap. And a flex wrap meaning that it will wrap them to the next in line. And you can see that if it runs out of space, it will move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one as well. Yeah. So again, this is mostly like very kind of very brief introduction into one of the methods of how to lay out your elements. But yeah, there's a lot of ways, or there is a way deeper kind of explanation. If you're interested into knowing that there is a flex with the CSS tricks, this is a really good resource if you're interested into Flexbox. So you can check CSS tricks. CSS tricks have a really good explanation, which you could practice. Again, what is some reason like the browser is just gone crazy. Yes. All right. So yeah, here's the website. But yeah, so yeah, that's all this is what you maybe need to know from kind of like a again kind of getting to know a basics of CSS and how to write things. Getting to know all the properties or you know all the stuff is going to be a pretty kind of like it's going to take a bit some time, but what is highly recommended for you if you want to kick off, if you want to start building your own portfolio, then what is recommended is you need to design. First of all, start by designing. Maybe you use Figma. Figma is a good tool of just go search for Figma. So you can, or you could use any open or free design software. So start from there, design the elements, see what you want, how you want the elements to look like, and then take it from there. That will be a lot easier for you to design elements and know how they want to look and be aligned next to each other. Things to keep in mind if you want to basically have a good and responsive design is so that's just here things to keep in mind. So first of all, you need to take care of spacings. So spacings is where you need to worry about, because that's basically more like related to the responsive design. And how can you do it? You could define like a global variables to tell what is the size, the size for like small spacing, whatever, like it's up to you. Then what things you could do is here you could just also need to take care of the typography, meaning that dynamic maybe font sizes or whatever. So this helps you in building a responsive design. So like these two things are the most crucial thing when it comes to actually building a responsive one. Is if you can handle the spacing well, and you can handle the typography dynamically, and all of them like dynamic, then it will be a lot easier for you to build a responsive design. So yeah, so what can you do next from here is you could practice by practicing building basic portfolio. Again, start with designing and then take it from there. All right, thanks a lot, and hope you enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see you next time.